There is a voice you hear more than any other voice in your lifetime, yet most people never question it. It speaks before you open your eyes in the morning and continues long after the world goes silent at night. This voice narrates your past, predicts your future, and decides what you believe is possible for you. And here is the truth most people never realize. Your life today is a reflection of how that voice has been speaking to you. Not your circumstances, not your luck, not other people. Your inner conversation has been quietly designing everything. Every achievement, every failure, every delay, every breakthrough was first rehearsed in the mind. The universe did not misunderstand you. You trained it perfectly through your self-talk. Most people assume manifestation is about visualizing harder or repeating affirmations louder, but manifestation begins much deeper than that. It begins with the tone, language, and authority of the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. The subconscious mind does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you consistently declare as true from the moment you were young. You absorbed language that shaped your identity. Words spoken to you became words spoken by you. Over time, that inner voice stopped sounding like others and started sounding like you. But that doesn't mean it's truthful. Many people unknowingly live under the command of a voice trained in fear, doubt, guilt, and limitation. And then they wonder why life feels heavy, delayed, or resistant. The problem was never life. It was the instructions being sent to it. Often reminded us that you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness choosing them. Yet most people live as if their thoughts are facts. If the inner voice says, "This is hard," the body feels tired. If it says, "This won't work," the energy collapses. If it says you're not enough, the world mirrors that belief back. The universe does not argue with your self-concept. It obeys it. Here is the shift that changes everything. Your inner voice is creative. It is not commentary, it is command. It is not describing reality, it is generating it. Every time you speak to yourself, you're either reinforcing the past or authorizing the future. Most people unknowingly speak from habit instead of intention. They repeat old mental scripts and then wait for something new to happen. But nothing changes until the voice changes. You don't need to fight your thoughts. You don't need to suppress them. You simply need to become conscious of them. Awareness alone begins to dissolve limitation. The moment you notice the way you speak to yourself, you reclaim power that was never lost, only misplaced. This is why transformation does not require years. It requires clarity. And clarity can arrive instantly if you change the way you talk to yourself for just 3 days, not mechanically, not desperately, but consciously. You interrupt a lifetime of conditioning. You signal a new identity to the subconscious. You begin to move from reaction to creation. The mind stops arguing with life and starts cooperating with it. This is not positive thinking, this is alignment. The voice within you is either your greatest ally or your quietest enemy. And the most important realization is this: you are the one speaking. Once you understand that, you no longer ask the world to change, you change the instruction. And when the instruction changes, the outcome must follow. Most people speak to themselves from the level of their circumstances. They describe what they see, what they lack, and what they fear repeating. Their inner dialogue sounds like a report of limitations. And because the subconscious mind accepts identity faster than effort, life continues to reflect the same patterns. The first day of this transformation is not about forcing positivity. It is about shifting identity. You do not manifest what you want, you manifest who you believe you are. When you speak to yourself as someone who is waiting, life gives you reasons to wait. When you speak to yourself as someone who is trying, life gives you resistance. But when you speak to yourself from a settled identity, from certainty rather than hope, reality begins to reorganize around that assumption. Notice how often the inner voice says, "I'm trying, I hope, maybe someday, or I'll see what happens." These phrases sound harmless, but they communicate hesitation to the subconscious. They declare uncertainty as an identity. On day one, the practice is simple but profound. Speak to yourself as the person who already knows who they are becoming. This does not mean denying your current situation. It means refusing to let your situation define your identity. You are not your bank balance. You are not your past decisions. You are not the delay. You are the consciousness moving through an experience. When you speak from that awareness, your words carry authority instead of desperation. Taught that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. This is not poetic language. It is psychological and energetic truth. The mind follows identity. Energy follows conviction. When your self-talk shifts from I want to, I choose, your nervous system responds differently. Your actions align naturally. Opportunities feel recognizable instead of distant. On this first day, you begin replacing language of becoming with language of being, not to impress the universe, but to instruct the subconscious. You no longer say, I'm not there yet. You say, I am aligning with what is already meant for me. You no longer speak as a victim of timing. You speak as a participant in creation. Identity. Based self-talk is calm. It does not rush. It does not beg. It does not explain itself. It simply states, when you speak to yourself this way, you step out of mental conflict. The mind stops resisting the future because it feels familiar. And familiarity is what the subconscious seeks. This day is not about affirmations repeated without feeling. It is about internal alignment. When you speak from identity, there is no tension in your voice, only quiet confidence. You are no longer trying to convince life. You are reminding yourself of what you already know at a deeper level. By the end of day one, something subtle but powerful happens. You begin to feel grounded instead of restless, clear instead of scattered. The inner voice becomes less reactive and more intentional. And that shift alone begins to open doors, not because you chased them, but because you stopped speaking as someone who was locked out. This is how transformation begins, not with effort, but with identity. Most people don't realize how deeply the language of struggle is embedded in their inner voice. It sounds normal because it's familiar. Phrases like, life is hard, I have to push, nothing comes easy. Or I'm tired of fighting repeat so often that they begin to feel like facts. But these are not descriptions of reality. They are instructions given to the subconscious. On the second day, the work is not about doing more. It is about removing resistance from the way you speak to yourself. The universe does not respond to force. It responds to alignment. Yet most people speak to themselves as if life is something to battle. They believe struggle proves worthiness. They think effort equals value. But this belief quietly exhausts the mind and blocks flow. When struggle becomes part of your language, it becomes part of your experience. The subconscious hears hard and prepares for resistance. The body tightens, the energy contracts, and then life feels exactly as expected, difficult, often emphasize that nature does not strain. Trees do not struggle to grow. Rivers do not force their way forward. Everything in nature moves with ease because it is aligned with its source. Human beings suffer not because life is difficult, but because the ego insists on controlling outcomes instead of trusting flow. And that insistence is heard clearly in the way we talk to ourselves. On day two, you begin to remove words that carry emotional weight of resistance. You stop saying, I have to, and replace it with I choose to. You stop saying this is exhausting and shift to this is unfolding in its own time. These are not empty substitutions, they are energetic corrections. The subconscious does not argue, it adapts. When you remove struggle from your inner language, you send a powerful message: you trust life. And trust changes everything. The nervous system relaxes, the mind becomes receptive. Solutions appear more naturally because you are no longer blocking them with tension. You move from forcing outcomes to allowing alignment. This does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming present. There is a profound difference between effort driven by fear and action guided by clarity. When your self-talk softens, your actions become more effective because they are no longer fueled by anxiety. You begin to notice that things require less effort than you were told. Opportunities don't need to be chased. They need to be recognized. Most people believe ease is earned only after suffering, but ease is a state of alignment, not a reward. The moment you stop speaking to yourself as if life is against you, life responds differently. The inner dialogue sets the emotional frequency, and life maxi. Hesitate without hesitation. By the end of day 2, you may notice something surprising. Your thoughts feel quieter. There is less mental noise, less internal pressure. You are still moving forward, but without friction. This is not coincidence. This is a result of changing the tone of your inner authority. When struggle leaves your language, it begins to leave your experience as well. The third day is where everything comes together. This is the day you stop speaking to yourself as a seeker and begin speaking as a source. Most people talk to themselves from a position of separation, separate from success, separate from abundance, separate from peace. Their inner voice sounds like it's reaching outward, asking, hoping, waiting. But manifestation accelerates the moment that separation dissolves. You are not outside the creative force. You are an expression of it. Wayne Dyer taught that there is no division between you and the source that creates worlds. The only separation exists in the mind. And that separation is reinforced every time you speak to yourself as if what you desire is somewhere else. On day 3, the shift is subtle but powerful. You begin speaking from unity, not lack. This means your inner dialogue no longer sounds like a request. It sounds like recognition. You are not convincing yourself of worthiness. You are remembering it. The tone changes from hope to knowing. From one day to this is unfolding now. The subconscious responds instantly to this certainty because certainty feels safe, and safety is what allows creation. One of the most powerful forms of self-talk on this day is gratitude, not as politeness, but as confirmation. Gratitude signals completion. When you speak with appreciation internally, the mind interprets it as evidence that something is already present. This collapses time. What felt distant begins to feel inevitable. Speaking as the source does not require dramatic words. It requires calm authority. There is no emotional intensity, no desperation, just clarity. You speak to yourself the way someone speaks, who knows they are supported by life itself. This tone carries immense power because it aligns you with the creative intelligence that moves through everything. At this stage, doubt may try to reappear. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because old patterns resist dissolution. When doubt arises, you do not fight it. You observe it and return to centered language. You remind yourself that thoughts are visitors, not commanders. The authority lies in awareness. By speaking to yourself as the source, you stop outsourcing power. You no longer wait for permission, signs, or approval. You move from asking life to respond to knowing that life is already responding. This inner certainty begins to reflect outwardly in ways that feel almost effortless. By the end of the third day, the most important change is internal. You feel rooted, grounded, present. The inner voice is no longer fragmented, it is unified. And from that unity, manifestation becomes natural, not because you forced reality to change, but because you finally stopped speaking to yourself as someone separate from it. This is where alignment replaces effort. This is where belief becomes knowing. And this is where the inner voice transforms from noise into power. Now comes the part where everything you've understood becomes something you live. Awareness without application fades. But when awareness is practiced, it rewires the mind. These 3 days were never meant to be an intellectual exercise. They are a reset. An interruption of old mental patterns that have been running on autopilot for years. The mind does not change through force, it changes through repetition infused with consciousness. For these 3 days, your only responsibility is observation and gentle correction. You are not judging your thoughts. You are not labeling them as good or bad. You are simply noticing them. The moment you notice how you speak to yourself, you step out of unconscious programming and into choice. That alone begins the reset. Morning is where the tone of the day is set. Before the world has a chance to speak to you, you speak to yourself. Not with effort, not with excitement, but with intention. You remind yourself who you are being today. Not what you want, not what you fear, who you choose to embody. This internal declaration becomes the emotional posture you carry forward. Throughout the day, emotional triggers will appear. Old reactions will attempt to return. This is not failure, this is opportunity. Every trigger reveals a habit of self-talk that is ready to be released. When something goes wrong, notice the first sentence your mind produces. That sentence matters more than the event itself. You pause and you rephrase, not to escape reality, but to realign with truth. At night, before sleep, you return to awareness. The subconscious is most receptive in this state. You gently revise the day, not by changing events, but by changing interpretation. You speak to yourself with compassion. You acknowledge progress instead of focusing on what wasn't perfect. This trains the mind to associate safety with growth. One guiding principle gover. This entire reset, never speak to yourself in a way you would not speak to someone you love deeply. The subconscious does not learn through punishment, it learns through reassurance. When the inner voice becomes supportive, resistance dissolves. Growth accelerates without pressure. Consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need to catch every thought, you only need to catch enough to shift direction. Each corrected sentence weakens an old pattern and strengthens a new one. Over time, the new voice becomes natural, not forced, not rehearsed, but authentic. By the end of these 3 days, you may not see dramatic external changes yet, but internally something is stabilized. The mind feels less chaotic. The emotional body feels safer, and safety is the foundation of manifestation. The universe responds most quickly to a nervous system that is calm, trusting, and aligned. This reset is not about becoming someone else. It is about removing what you were never meant to carry. And once that weight lifts, movement becomes effortless. Your life is not shaped by the words you speak out loud once in a while. It is shaped by the sentences you repeat silently every day. Over time, those sentences become beliefs. Those beliefs become behaviors. And those behaviors become destiny. This is not philosophy, it is cause and effect operating at a subtle level. The inner voice is always listening. Even when you think you're not paying attention, it is recording patterns, and life reflects those patterns faithfully. Not to reward or punish, but to mirror. The universe is neutral. It simply responds to consistency. What you consistently tell yourself becomes what you consistently experience. Most people wait for confidence before they change their self-talk. But confidence is not the cause, it is the result. The inner dialogue comes first. When you speak to yourself with certainty, the nervous system adapts. When the nervous system adapts, behavior shifts naturally. When behavior shifts, results follow. Everything begins internally. You were never meant to motivate yourself through pressure. You were meant to guide yourself through awareness. When the inner voice becomes aligned, life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a conversation. And you are no longer arguing with reality. You are cooperating with it. Reminded us that you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And what you are is revealed in how you speak to yourself when no one is listening. That voice either keeps you tethered to the past or invites you into the future. The choice is subtle, but it is always yours. You don't need to commit to this forever. You only need to commit for 3 days. 3 days of conscious language, 3 days of intentional self-talk, 3 days of choosing alignment over habit. Because once you feel the shift, you won't want to go back. Awareness changes preference. The most powerful relationship you will ever have is the one you have with your own mind. When that relationship becomes respectful, supportive, and intentional, everything else begins to reorganize around it. Opportunities feel natural. Confidence feels grounded. Peace feels accessible. The voice you speak to yourself with today becomes the environment you live in tomorrow. Choose it wisely, not loudly, not forcefully, but consciously, because the moment you change the way you speak to yourself, life listens.